Okay. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our event today. We are talking about Mo Money, Mo Problems, and why using money to really motivate your employees isn't the best way to really engage them. I'm joined today with Megan Meyer of Red Balloon Coaching. Thank you, Megan. I'd
Hi,
love
thanks
for
for having me.
you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do, who you work with, and what are the big problems you solve for people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Megan Meyer, as Megan said. We like to keep it confusing and have the same name for these events. I'm the founder of Red Balloon Coaching and Communications. My background is 16 years of corporate communication experience, and I'm bringing that to my coaching. So I work with executives, really anyone from the director level above who wants to work on communicating better with their teams, with their organizations, or any other topic that they might bring to coaching. So I work with people one-on-one, and then I also work with groups.
Wonderful. So today we're talking about how money does not work to motivate employees. And I don't know, Megan, if you've had a personal experience with this, but like when we started discussing this topic, I remembered I worked for this company in the oil and gas field industry, and I left and I started to pursue my career in personal training. And there was this joke that the boss said if I ever celebrated his birthday, he'd fire me. So his birthday just happens to be my dad's birthday too. So it was easy for me to remember. So now I no longer work for him. I decided to pop in the office with a balloon and an ice cream cake and be like, you can't fire me, right? But when I actually went back, he's like, it's so funny you came in. We were just talking about you. We've had a
Mhm.
hard time filling your position. We were wondering if actually you'd want to come back. And it took everything I had not to like laugh, because in my mind, I'm thinking there is no amount of money you could pay me to want to take that job again. And I don't know if you've ever had a job like that where you almost go like the money's just not worth it.
Yeah, almost the opposite type of experience that I had at one point in my career is that I was staying in a job I really shouldn't be in because of the money. And, I think looking back on that, I wish that I'd had some of these insights that we're going to talk about today to really drive my own personal decisions. So, whether you're a manager, leader, or you're an individual employee that's trying to be the leader of themselves, I think all of these things are really important because sometimes money's, even as an employee, it's just not enough. So, if your mental health is, you know, challenging, if your mental health is challenged and you're not feeling good about the work that you're doing, it's not aligned with your values, which can change over time. It doesn't mean that it's the same, as the day that you started. Things, organizations change, people change, managers change. And, recognizing that, looking back on that experience, for me, the money was just not enough.
Yeah. So when you are dealing with leaders and kind of navigating them through some of these challenges, what are some of the things that you tell them? Like, what are you teaching them about?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the things that we've talked about, right, is especially now post pandemic, employees it's an employees market. So they can go and find a job anywhere. So the things that are important to them, if you want to retain your talent or attract new talent, are very different than they might have been a couple of years ago. But in some ways, are really similar. So, paying them the appropriate amount for the role and making sure that they're incentivized appropriately is great. But I know someone who just shared with me last week that he's hiring someone who took a $40,000 pay cut to come and work with him because his values were more personally aligned with that work. There's a model called Hertzberg. It's open source. You can Google it. That shows, really all of the factors that have to be in place for people to be satisfied in their job, but then all of the things that as managers, as leaders of ourselves, that we can do to make sure that people around us are having a great experience at work, and kind of to influence that corporate culture.
Yeah. And I have a list here because, I've been hearing from so many people because, you and I did an event, The Great Resignation, and I know
Mm-hmm.
you really kind of teach and speak on that. And I almost wonder if it's almost not should be considered the Great Shuffle, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not just that people are quitting the job and not being in the workforce, but they're specifically quitting this job A to go work that job B. And I just actually talked, my husband's company just lost an employee, and he basically figured like, hey, the way the job market is now, I can walk across the street, do the same job for the competitor and make more. And, he came back to their company and said, look, if it was about the money, we'll pay you more. That's not a problem. And he said, you know what? It's not just that. There were some other issues. And I think that's the key that employers need to grasp is it's not just the money. Like, yeah, the money's nice, but there's other issues, because I've heard so many stories where the employer A has come back and been like, well, if it's money, I'll give you more money. And the employees
Exactly.
still aren't sticking around. That doesn't quite hit it. So I think it's important that employers really survey their employees and figure out what's important to them. And I
Mhm.
think this fits really well into your model that you teach on, because I think you'll see how like the top reasons people leave, and like what they're looking for in a company really fit into that model. And I know the
Mhm.
first one is the autonomy.
Mhm.
And this is a big one for me. And I think all entrepreneurs feel this, that we do
Yeah.
not like to be micromanaged. And I know I have walked away from job offers because I knew the manager in the position would always be over my shoulder and managing me, and having a job that provides me more autonomy. It is just so much more appealing that I would take lesser pay to have that freedom to make the decisions to do what I need to do to make my job work.
Mhm. Yeah, I think especially now that we've been through this time period where the lines between work and home were so blurred, whether we wanted them to be or not. I mean, a lot of people that I talk to in coaching are grieving their commute time. We're starting to see people go back to the office now, but that hour even, or even 20 minutes that people had between work and home to switch brain gears to put, the home gear on or the work gear on from the other thing is just not there anymore. And so as we're finding that people are having a lot of trouble drawing those lines, having autonomy, having some flexibility and some understanding from managers on what's important to their employees and what they need to be able to build into their schedules makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And you really touched on 2 points there. And one is that blurred line with work life balance that a
Mhm.
lot of companies aren't. They're finding they can save money by not paying the lease on a building. And, the remote thing's been working. So it really helps to cut costs. And I know some employees love it because they do think that it really boosts their work life balance. But I think there are a lot of employees that feel burned out because they don't know how to draw that line in the sand, that these are my work hours, these are my family hours, or this is my workspace in the home versus this is my family space in the home. And they're really struggling because they don't have the tools to know how to manage their time, manage their day, and find that balance.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's harder than ever.
And the other point is, the managers not being understanding of that. I teach a presentation where we talk about positive psychology is really the permission to give ourselves to be human. And we need to create a culture that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to
Mhm.
have a bad day. And I think there is a need to have training for the leaders that they can recognize when they have an employee that's drowning. What are the tools that you can give them to help them?
Yeah. I think a lot of employers are, kind of check the box and say, okay, we have an employee assistance program. If someone needs it, they'll reach out. But a lot of times, I think that what people are really needing right now, because we have been remote, because we have been virtual, because we have been isolated, is just someone that they have a relationship with reaching out. And, as a manager, as a leader, as a coworker, being willing to do that when you recognize that someone's struggling, whether it's a workload issue or something that's going on at home that's affecting them at work, that can be really powerful.
Yeah. And I am one of those people that I teach that if your employee is calling your EAP, it's too late.
Yeah.
EAPs are for problems. They are for when your employee has an issue. Whereas your front end development, your front end training, your wellness program, those are preventative so that they
Mhm.
don't have to call the EAP provider and I have a serious mental health issue because I have been dealing with stress for so long,
Yeah.
or I've been dealing with this anxiety for so long. It has caused serious physiological and psychological issues. And now I need to seek better treatment, more help, because there wasn't anything preventative.
Mhm.
And you kind of hit the nail on the head, and it's having that leadership and that sense of community. And I know that's a big reason a lot of people will switch jobs, is they just don't feel like they belong or they have a place in that community.
Mhm. Yeah, so many thoughts running through my head as you were talking there. But I think as a society, we've forgotten how important preventative care can be in so many different ways, but especially in the mental health space. By just to your point, by the time someone's calling EAP, they're probably going to need time off of work to recover from whatever's going on.
Mhm.
And if you look at the statistics, I think employees are missing more work than ever, which seems counterintuitive when we have more opportunities to work from home and be with our families and more flexibility, perhaps, but we're also struggling more. So there's something there that's not working.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know when talking about community, the one job that I did work, I remember like I hated this one job I had, and I'm not going to say where or anything. Hated. Um, I worked a ton of hours, and I got to say, the reason I stayed is because the people I worked with were almost like family to me. And there was a
Mhm.
certain level of guilt that, like, I knew if I leave, that person's going to have to pick up my slack. And I will say that as much as I hated the job and what I did, I never wanted to leave because I love the people I worked with. And I think those employee relations and who you have in your company and how they support each other, not just leadership, but the coworker sitting at the desk next to you, can make such a difference in, employees wanting to stay or come work for your company. It's like, okay, yeah, this job is mundane, it's boring, it's not really what I want to be doing right now, but you can't beat this environment. You can't beat the people you work with.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, it is crazy to think that that is so much more important than the work itself. But in a lot of ways, it's so true. We could have an interesting role and still hate coming to work every day because you're not getting the support you need. You're not getting the recognition that you want, all the things that you're going to touch on. So I'm going to stop talking. But yes, the sense of community is huge. And if you've ever worked somewhere where you didn't feel that and somewhere where you do feel that, I think everybody's had one of those experiences and can see the big difference.
Oh, yeah. Another reason that people are leaving or not wanting to stay at a company is they feel like they don't have a purpose in that company. And this is something that even like Simon Sinek talks about, is like, they ask millennials, like, what's going to get you to stay? Well, we want a job that has purpose. And it's like, okay, but define that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the best way to define that is, as a company, are you really communicating? And I think this is where your expertise comes in. Are you really communicating to that employee how important their role is? Because just looking at their role, it might seem kind of insignificant. They don't really understand why they're doing what they're doing. But at a
Mm-hmm.
grander scheme, they're such an important cog. And are we communicating that to the employee so that they feel like their job is important, even if it may not seem that way to them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just sharing with Megan earlier that I saw this so much in my roles in internal communications in particular, is that, you can be very skilled at even articulating an amazing vision of where the organization is going. But if I, as an employee, don't see how I'm connected to that, it can really help. It can really hinder my performance. It can really hinder my engagement. Especially for those that have maybe a mundane job where they're doing billing or something that's the same activity on repeat every day. For a lot of people that are in those roles, they're in those roles for a reason. They usually like them. But if they're not seeing how it connects to the bigger picture, what's to stop them to go do billing somewhere else that's paying a little bit more? So I think that, making sure that people know what their place is, and this is where you have to lean really heavily on all levels of leadership. It's really important, top to bottom in the organization, small or large, that you're having regular conversations about how everyone is contributing to the bigger cause.
Yeah. And I think that requires employees or employers and organizations to continue doing training and development, because I think you said it earlier, in that the way that we view retention and really capturing the best workforce
Mhm.
is, what kind of culture we create, what kind of leadership we have. And there are issues today that are more prevalent that weren't there maybe 10 years ago. You've got managers, and I'm thinking of a couple companies in particular where I've had conversations with people where you managers that still have that mindset of, well, I could replace your job tomorrow,
Mhm.
and they don't treat their employees with respect. But it's like, okay, so in this workforce, good luck. Good luck really trying to find the people to fill the role. On top
Yeah.
of that, the amount of time and money wasted in training that new talent and how much time you're going to get behind, because sure, it's a billing job. Maybe it's easy. You just enter data. Maybe it's just a data entry position. But you got to teach that person what data goes into what box. And that takes time. And there's going to be mistakes at the beginning. Whereas the
Mhm.
other person maybe has years of experience, made very few mistakes. There is a cost to that. And there are some managers that aren't in that right mindset. And they
Mhm.
do create a very toxic environment. You do have issues like workplace bullying. And I don't think enough organizations are focused and communicating well with how to handle those issues.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, if you've ever worked for a manager or boss that goes in their office and closes the door and kind of lets everything run rampant. I mean, I'm thinking of bigger organizations where I was on the floor with maybe 30 people, but the gossip and the bullying and I mean, all of the things that
Mhm.
really drive a really horrible experience for some employees. When the manager's not engaged, it's allowed to go on. And it's kind of scary, it's a different um, place than it used to be. But for every organization that I've worked for that's on the larger side, your finance person could tell you exactly what the cost was of turnover. And when you start to see rates going above 10% and you think about how that cost adds up, it's much cheaper to keep the people that you have and invest in their growth and their potential. You think about the way that the world is changing right now, it's changing so fast. How could we expect our people to not need to be refreshing their skills consistently?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think unless you can think of anything else, I think those are the biggest issues that employers are facing with retaining their talent and motivating employees. Throwing more money at them doesn't solve the issues like having the autonomy to work, being able to learn new skills, understanding how they fit. Money does not solve the community issues. And do I feel like I'm really part of something much bigger? And providing that support for work-life balance. I read one study that millennials in particular, and I think Gen Z is following this trend, is that they would take a lesser paying job if it meant that they had more time at home with their kids.
Mhm.
If they had that more freedom to spend time with their friends or travel or do whatever it is. And so money does not solve these issues. So what would be your advice to some leaders on how they could, resolve some of these issues, without thinking about spending any money?
Yeah.
Like, what are some simple things they could implement?
Yeah. So, one of the things that we've talked about, and I think we even mentioned it in the description of this session, was that we want people to be intrinsically motivated. We don't want to have to be motivating them externally all the time. And intrinsic motivation comes from knowing that you're going to a place that you're going to feel good about the work that you're doing, knowing that when you do something or you put in those extra hours and you do take time away from your family, that you're going to be recognized for it and that you're going to be appreciated and someone's going to say thank you. So, building the capacity of your managers and leaders to learn how to motivate people is super, super important. And, some of these things like recognition could be considered external motivation, but at the end of the day, I need to be motivated because I know what the result is going to be from inside out. And so I think it's just switching gears and thinking about how do we do that. And one of the biggest trends that we've seen coming out of the pandemic, especially, is that if you don't have a wellness program at your organization, It is a huge disadvantage because just like you were talking about earlier, Megan, people are starting to see the value of preventative care. We don't want to spend time isolated in our homes because we don't feel good. We don't want to be, overweight, stressed out, having heart issues because of the stress that our work brings. And so if we know that we're going to work somewhere where something like a wellness program is offered so that we're consistently having opportunities to take care of ourselves, and we know that our company is investing in that to take care of ourselves. From a corporate perspective, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the things we talked about with turnover and consistently offering counter offers because your people are leaving. I mean, investing in something like a wellness program is a small investment upfront that's going to pay huge dividends going forward. And you probably know way more about this than I do, but it will also save you money when your employees aren't getting sick all the time. So they're not losing time. They're not going in for critical emergency issues. Emergency room visits are so expensive. I learned about that when I worked in healthcare. So one of the top things I recommend is the wellness programs.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's the same thing though with your wellness program as it is for your employee retention, because I mean, you are talking my sweet spot, and that's what I do is go in and build out your wellness program for your company. But, the biggest thing I get is our employees don't engage in it. We run these wellness programs, these challenges, and just not everyone participates. It's the same thing. I teach about the intrinsic motivation. I have to be wanting to take those steps or lose that weight or get healthy because it's something I want to do. I am internally motivated. There's something I'm passionate about that's moving me towards that goal. It's not just because, again, oh, there's a prize at the end of it. I'm so sick of the Biggest Loser challenges where lose weight and we'll give you a gift card and or do the step challenge and here's money. Trying to find a way that, one, everyone wants to participate because not everyone has weight to lose. They can't, join in a fat loss challenge if they don't have a lot of fat to lose. They're in a healthy weight. People don't want to participate in a step challenge if they have arthritic knees or ankles or are handicapped in any way. They're not going to want to participate. And so thinking outside the box and getting creative, and that comes back to also that autonomy. Provide the kind of more the vehicle for them to find wellness, but then give them the autonomy. And what does wellness look like for them? For some people, it is weight loss. For some people, it is becoming more active. For others, it's eating healthier or learning how to manage their stress or learning how to manage their finances and speaking in financial wellness. But it does come back that it has to be intrinsically motivated. And once you're intrinsically motivated, you need to give them the autonomy to go after that goal in the way that best serves them. And so that's really what I try to do is just basically provide as many vehicles as I can. There's so many different ways you can go with your wellness program. What's going to be the best for your population and your people that's really going to excite them, because not the same thing is going to work all the way around. And that's what I know the biggest challenge for larger companies is, okay, how do I engage my employees? How do I motivate them to perform better when not the same thing motivates everybody?
Yeah, it is funny to me when I think about challenges that I've participated in the past, some of the ones you named, that, it's like, yes, I want to win an iPad. But am I winning an iPad because I actually want to become healthier? Or am I winning an iPad because I'm a competitive person and this is like something fun for me to do and I can take a walk break that I can't normally take at work or whatever the case may be? But if we're motivated by external things, it just doesn't last. The results don't last. And one of the foundational models that I use in my coaching, and Megan, you probably have something similar, is just, we know we're getting this outcome. We know we're not happy with the outcome. We probably know what the behaviors are that are driving that outcome. What we have to unwire is what our mindset is that keeps us going back into old patterns and habits. And again, that goes back to the being internally motivated. You've got to, it's got to come from internally. Or inside the person. It's got to come from their brain, their heart, what's important to them. Or even if they do get results in the short term, it's unlikely to last.
Yeah. And one of the things that I tend to teach leaders And I have a whole workshop on creating a culture of growth and positivity. And in that, one of the things that I know a lot of people take away that they can implement right away is the different types of praise we give people. So when they are performing the challenge or they're doing the task or they're being productive, it's so simple to go up to and be like, hey, you're doing a great job. You're awesome. You're rocking at this. And research after research has shown saying things like, you're awesome, you're so smart, you're this, you're that, is actually causing your employees to develop more of a fixed mindset. And they
Mm,
don't know how to repeat a good behavior. So when they find that good behavior and they start to gain traction with building a healthy habit or a productive habit, giving them the proper praise and giving them the process praise. Hey, I like the way you did that. Or, hey, can you show me how you performed X because it worked really well? Now they have a baseline on, hey, when I do X, Y happens, and they can put it
mhm,
together. It's not just like, a kid aces a test and he doesn't study for it. Oh, you're so smart. What made him so smart? He doesn't know what he actually did to get that A. Was it his studying? Was it his note taking? Was it the way he listened to the teacher? What was it that really helped him to achieve that A? He doesn't know. He just hears he's so smart. So by
mhm.
actually, and we're the same way as adults. It's the same with children as with adults. We still learn the same way. So if you go to an employee and say like, hey, I really like that letter you sent that closed that sale or whatever. Now they know, hey, this is a good template to use for other sales calls. Or, hey, I really like the way you presented, to the team this morning. Okay, well, my presentation was good. Point out what in the process that they did well so that they can repeat it. And it's amazing how that can also take people in the fixed mindset and put them in the growth mindset, and then they internally get that motivation of, I want to do better, I want to learn more, I want to grow. And it is
Mhm.
amazing how it does tend to flick a switch and how simple it is to do that.
I love that. And you're bringing up thoughts for home and thoughts for work. But I had a coaching client one time that I was working with on work stuff. He came in super frustrated one day because he was having like a marital spat, which we all have, right? And I'm like, have you ever read the book, The Five Love Languages? Because we all tend to communicate and show appreciation, show recognition, show love, the ways that we like to have love expressed to us or recognition. But for the reality is like for some people, getting recognized at a public event where 500 people are going to hear their name is the biggest nightmare. Like it's hugely embarrassing and they'll never do what you wanted them to do over again ever again because they don't want that embarrassment. And so I think, tapping into what specifically is important for each individual person rather than a blanket, band-aid solution for everyone. And it's not always possible. People are busy and it's, crazy right now. But I do think that just taking the time to ask, especially your direct reports or the people, if you have a small organization that work with you, what is it that motivates you? What would mean the most to you? And it doesn't have to be the same for everyone. Of course, you want it to be fair, but people are motivated differently.
You know what? You don't even have to ask. I think if you're a good manager, look at what even makes them smile after you do something.
So true.
If you build the right relationship, and I know this is something you and I may be talking about next month, is really employee relations and how similar they are to just your regular dating relationship, how the employee or employee relationship, there is like some similarities there
Yeah.
that like you should build that relationship and that community that eventually you can tell, like when you say something, oh, that was awkward, or like you do something, it puts a big smile on their face. You should be able to read some of that body language and have enough of a connection with your employees that you can kind of read that. And if you don't, maybe you're not really great at reading people, then yeah, then absolutely put out a survey to your
Mhm.
people. What motivates you? What do you enjoy about working here? What don't you like about working here? What would you like to see more of? If you could change anything in this organization, what would it be? It's not hard to set up like even a survey monkey survey for free and send it out and just get some solid feedback from your people. And I think a lot of employers would be amazed in what comes back. That's not just money, 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 money. You don't pay me enough to do this job. I mean, you're always going to have some of those people in your organization, but for a
Yeah.
great many, there are other things that are far more valued over money. And I think, really drilling down, learning your people and what they value is important. Heck, make them all take the love languages assessment. That would be interesting.
It's something I thought about earlier when I was kind of thinking about what I was going to say today was, engagement surveys and how organizations spend so much money on them. And they're fantastic if you have a multi-level organizations with thousands of employees so that you can break the feedback down, et cetera, et cetera. But like Megan said, it's as simple as a survey monkey or even just having a conversation, getting to know your people. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars to be able to motivate people or to make them feel really good about coming to their job every day. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think with there, we're going to end this. So I've got nothing else to add. I think there were some
Yeah.
really good nuggets in
Great.
that. So I appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Fun.
absolutely. And this will be up on Facebook Live. If anyone wants to put a comment in, we'll be monitoring that. That will be up for like ever. So just shoot us a message. Again, this is Megan Meyer with Red Balloon Coaching. How can people get a hold of you?
The easiest way is my email. So it's coachmeganmeyer@gmail.com.
Perfect. And you can always comment on the live stream video of this on our Facebook, and we'll be sure to get back to you. So thank you again so much for joining
Yep.
me.
Yeah. Happy Thursday.
Yep. All right. I'll
Talk
see
to
you
you soon.
later.
Bye.
Bye.